Alrighty, today I've got a very special guest. It's one of my favorite YouTubers in the world. This guy right here. This is CG KID. I tried to get him to teach me how to do that earlier and I couldn't do it. Alrighty, so before we get started, give us a brief description of who you are and what your channel's like.
I'm CG KID on YouTube. My real name's Philip. I go by Scrotum as a friend. Gator, Catfish, or Megatron. And on my channel we do investigative journalism, documenting experiences with drug addiction, recovery, and I share my experiences being a recovering addict. So I interview people and I share my experiences to give people hope sobriety is possible in a relatable way.
Yep, and this guy has helped me through my sobrieties. As far as like getting into the drugs, were you the kid that was like always curious about drugs, or were you the kid that was like, I am never gonna touch drugs ever, you know, goody goody, whatever?
I think I was like, what do they call it? Square? Or no, straight edge. They call it
straight edge, yeah.
Yeah, I think I was straight edge with trying harder stuff, but I was curious about pot and natural drugs. But I mean, I don't know, I wanted to fit in. That was part of my motive. I didn't really have like, I had a traumatic childhood, so.
I got you.
You know, that made me more prone to, I think, becoming addicted once I tried something. But the reason I tried it was like, everybody's doing it, it's like normal, you know?
Yeah.
To smoke weed, and I tried it, and
you liked it.
Yeah, yeah.
You just, yeah.
I like fitting in and I like the effects, and then I got curious about trying different things, but I was like, I'm not gonna do ecstasy or meth.
Right, the hardest
Until one
shit,
day
yeah.
I did, you know, and it was like, then it was off to the races. Yeah, I was addicted to meth my first time, but I tried a lot of stuff, almost, I don't want to say almost everything. There's like hundreds of thousands of drugs, like research chemicals and stuff, but most drugs people think of I've tried except LSD. But everything else pretty much, you know. And then when I tried meth, it was like off to the races. I think everybody has their drug of choice, and the way you find your drug of choice and become an addict is by experimenting. Genetically, we all react differently to different drugs. Some people drink alcohol, be an alcoholic, some won't. Some
Right.
try meth and don't like it, some do.
Right.
And when people experimenting put me in a dangerous situation, because I'm trying all of these different drugs just to try them. And then eventually one reacted with me in a way that was extremely addictive.
So both of our drug of choice is meth. Could you give like a little story on how you found it the first time and like how it felt the first time using?
Well, like my ecstasy dealer ran out. She had meth, and I remember she said, if you liked ecstasy, you're gonna love this. And she like ripped the bowl for me the very first time.
Yeah.
I blew out a cloud, and instantly I started like making these, it is weird, I was like making these oaths to myself that I would control this, that I would keep using it, but I wouldn't let it get out of control.
Yeah.
And it was just like this promise I was making to myself the second I felt high on it. It was the first like thing I thought was, I have to do this again. I don't want to become an addict, so I'm going to be in control. And that's like, looking back, that's like a joke to me, thinking I was in control. It progressed so rapidly and sneaky.
Right.
I wasn't like, hey, I tried meth, I'm gonna use it every day now, but it was like once a month, and then that becomes once every 2 weeks really fast, and that becomes once a week. When you're binging for 5 days and you're using once a week, you're technically using 5 out of 7 days. But I still saw it as once a week, which is crazy, you know? But like the addiction snuck up on me. I didn't really think I was gonna become an addict right away, but it happened so fast. And I was just at the end of it, I was like, what just happened? Like, I'm addicted to meth now. And I just remember the time I realized I was addicted to meth, I thought about being homeless, I thought about faces of meth, and things like that used to bother me, but I just didn't care. I mean, I didn't care if I was homeless, I didn't care if I hurt family, I didn't care if I had faces of meth, like, and that's when I realized I had this dark feeling that there was a part of me that like couldn't escape it. Like deep down I wanted it to stop. It's almost like those dreams where you scream for help but you can't get anything out.
Right.
The first time I reached out for help through a rehab, I said help me, but it felt like I was so obstructed that it was just a part deep down that wanted help, and on the surface I didn't want help at all.
Exactly.
It was scary. It's like being in a prison in your own mind.
Take us through a day of what it looked like using meth. Like how much were you using? What would you do when you were on the drug?
I just smoked it until I felt like I was overdosing every time. I would just smoke until it was too much. And I was like, damn, if I take another hit, the dopamine, like my brain's gonna break, or my heart's gonna stop. And it was like, you know, selling everything I could on Craigslist. It'd be like 4 in the morning. I'd be like, nobody's awake, but if I list my computer on Craigslist for 20 bucks, somebody's gonna answer.
Right.
So I ended up like scalping my whole room basically. And then I was left with like nothing, you know, and there was like nothing in the room. And then it's like, now what do I do? And that's where like weird thoughts come in your mind where you think maybe I could sell off my girlfriend's body or something. You know, that's like, because you're out of your mind. Like I wasn't thinking, my girlfriend my ex would never do that, and I never brought it up to her. But it's like those thoughts that start entering my mind of like, I was with this girl like 8 years at the time, or 7 years, and I'm thinking that way, which I never normally think. So it becomes like this point of desperation that's hard to describe.
How exactly did it affect you? Were you like super happy on it? Because, you know, it affects different people in different ways.
Porn, it's a sex drug, pure sex drug.
Sex.
Yeah, I watched porn one time until I was hospitalized because I couldn't stop to drink water.
Until he was hospitalized.
Yeah, my stuff shrilled up and I couldn't pee and I didn't have water, and it was like 7 days non-stop just watching porn. I don't know how much water I drank, but it wasn't much. And it was just like this obsession with sex. Like I remember like having a class and knowing I have a test coming up. I have to be there for the test. I passed school. I don't know how I passed school on meth. But I would show up to the test like 30 minutes late, no shower. I would say to myself, like, I'm gonna stop an hour before the class to shower, look human, get this lube off of me. I showed up to the class smelling like KY, sweating, like no shower, just disgusting. Like, because I couldn't stop watching porn for that extra hour, even though I'd been watching it for 3 days straight. I couldn't stop an hour before the class. Like there was like this, I can't stop.
Right.
When it came to sex, until like I was hallucinating. So I'd be like watching porn, and on day 5 or whatever, I would start hallucinating and forget what I'm watching. And it's like, what am I watching? What is this? Oh, these are humans having sex. This is porn. And then I would start to lose touch with reality. And then when I lost touch with reality, I'd start doing really crazy stuff. Like thinking the mafia has a hit on me. So now instead of talking, I'm writing notes to people and showing it to them and stuff.
At one
those
point,
people I'm showing the notes to aren't even real people that are there. So I'm just in this state of complete psychosis.
See, that's crazy. At one point you were trying, you thought aliens were out to get you or something?
Yeah, I got a phone book and I called like almost every number, and then I called the cops on myself. Like that's pretty dumb, you know?
That's crazy.
But I had no touch with reality after a while.
Oh my goodness.
I thought it was as real as me and you standing here.
Right.
When the mafia put out a hit on me and I was standing there with somebody and talking to them, it was just like, it was on a scale of 1 to 10, it was a 10 for me of how real it was. There was no convincing me it wasn't. So it was real scary. When I came down, I'd be like, what the hell was I thinking? I would realize it wasn't realist when I came down and I slept. But then I just go back and start the binge over the sex, which is the feel-good part. Anyone else hallucinating, I liked it because I was high. I'd be smoking while I was hallucinating. So it was like, yeah, I wasn't really afraid. I was like numb, and it would be like this obsession of peeking out the blinds for like 8 hours. It gave me something to do. Like the hallucinations kept me entertained.
Right.
So it's not like that part of it wasn't part of the addiction. It was part of it. And a lot of people like that part in interviews, including myself. I remember smoking pot to make it more intense, or doing whatever I could to try to make the hallucinations worse, so I get more, because I didn't want to be in reality.
Right.
Reality is boring. Like in this other world, I had purpose. You got to think like aliens are coming, but I'm the only human that knows. The mafia put out a hit on me. Well, I'm important enough for the mafia to put out a hit on me. So all these things are like actually part of the escape, where it's like I watch movies with like schizophrenics, and it seems like that's part of like them not wanting to get help, or them not wanting to take meds. Is like in the hallucinations they have purpose, but in real life they're seen as somebody with mental disability. You
used meth consecutively for 8 months, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think the most horrific thing that you went through, saw, or you know, happened in that 8-month period?
I think a lot of it is the how I hurt loved ones. It's like, yeah, I saw aliens coming. I had like a bunch of dark stuff, really bad come downs, but whenever like I'd have a come down and I'd drink alcohol on a meth come down to kind of help me sleep, I would over drink, and the mixture of being in like a meth come down and being drunk, like not having inhibitions, made me like this rageful person. So example is, I remember like yelling at my girlfriend at the top of my lungs, my ex-girlfriend and my dad coming in, and then beating myself unconscious, and then like tearing off my clothes and running down the street half naked screaming because I was embarrassed about my dad like hearing me yell and seeing me do that. And just the way I treated my ex, and like the abusive verbal abuse. Or I remember one point like seeing her face shrunken in and her eyes bulging out, and remembering how innocent like we used to be as a relationship, and realizing I look like that too, going in the mirror. And then realizing that like this drug wasn't a terroristic part no matter what, like, and understanding like it caused a lot of harm to these relationships. Those are like the darkest moments for me.
Wow.
Because, like, you know, it's one thing to go through it, it's another thing for people, like, to go through it while other people are watching you go through it. Like, my dad never done a drug, he's never drank before or anything. So for him to watch me beat myself unconscious and scream and rip off my clothes, like, it makes it that much more real. Like, I'm going through it and it's totally crazy, but also other people are watching it and they're like, what's going on?
So how often do you think about the drug now?
The drug of meth particularly, and almost never, only when I talk about it. When I talk about it, I don't get triggered. It's just, it's like I've accepted it's not a part of my life at all, you know. Things like pot trigger me more. It's not that I like pot more, it's just like there's a mentality if I can get away with it. Meth, it's like there's no getting away with it, so like I don't even think about it, you know.
Right.
There's been times, you know, you're in California and pot's legal and shit, and you're like, maybe it's not such a bad idea, but, but meth, it just never seems like even the beginning of a good idea starts with meth, so I just never entertain it.
Did you ever go through like any sort of treatment, like rehabs or anything like that? Yeah,
so when I got sober, I went a very cliche route, and I tried getting sober for a year before I actually got sober, so there was that, like, I want to be sober but I can't for a long time, and I decided to just do everything that the counselors and social workers said. I went to a psych ward, social worker said to go to rehab, so I did that. Counselor said to go to sober living, so I did that. Sober living said to go to the 12 steps, I did that. So I just did whatever, like I reached out and just followed the path that everyone else had. Yeah. And I mean, I didn't want to do any of that stuff, but I feel like that's what kept me from getting sober that year was I didn't, like, I would take the counselor's advice, I'd take 90% of it, but there was like a 10% part, and I would just say, no, I'm not doing that. And to me, it's important. It was important for me to do everything, and that's just my path. Everyone's so unique, you know.
Right.
You know, some people don't need to have to turn themselves over to these people, but I almost felt like I had to turn my decision making over into a counselor. Yeah. And just almost be a child for a while and trust that they'll have my best interests in mind like a parent, and just walk through it and just do it.
For anyone that's out there struggling with addiction right now, or knows a loved one that is going through it right now, do you have any like words of encouragement or anything like that?
Yeah, definitely don't be afraid to reach out for help, and I think it's important that we learn how to love ourselves. And if you have a friend or a loved one who's addicted, it's important that you love them as well, but you also have to learn how to love yourself. So sometimes you have to step back and take care of yourself, because that's like when I used meth, it was, I thought it was just for fun, or drugs were just for fun, but I realized they were the only way I was able to love myself. And getting sober was, I had to learn how to love myself from something within me, and I think for everybody, their path to that is different. But I know when you see a struggling addict or someone newly in sobriety, it's never a good idea to shame them or try to beat them into sobriety. It's much better of an idea to show compassion and open-mindedness and talk eye to eye than talk over them. So,
dude, I appreciate you spending time with me and getting together.
Man. It was fun.
Make sure to check out his channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. His channel will be in the link in description. And I'm gonna try this thing with him right now.
I give up on you.